I'm pretty sure you're meant to pour these, but I have nothing big enough to pour them into. That's the biggest dilemma I've ever had.
This feels risky, I might just bring it closer.
Yeah, I reckon. Get those kneecaps, I reckon.
You've got these all right. This is definitely not the intro. Mine the shot. Yeah. Well, I don't know, here we are, I suppose. Episode 21 of the Lifting Life podcast. This probably looks a little bit different to the previous 20 episodes.
Yeah.
It's probably just because you're on it. But, yeah, no, I guess I don't really know what to say, but this episode is, I think I might call it like a mate special or something like that. And I think maybe 1 in every 10 episodes or 1 in every 5 episodes. I don't want to have you guys on too frequently. I might do a mate special, but you're the first one, so you're the test dummy.
Yeah.
Emphasis on the dummy, probably. Nah, just joking. Why don't you tell the people what your name is and how you fit into the picture?
So I'm Caleb. I had the great privilege of living with Cam during high school.
Well, I guess I live with you, but
oh yeah, live with me, but
same.
yeah. And, yeah, in the lovely peaceful town of Whakatane in Coastlands, and yeah. Well, we go back. When did we meet?
Probably a little bit longer than that.
Yeah.
It was either the end of primary school or definitely the start of intermediate. But I feel like we might have known each other before intermediate even.
Yeah, I think it was on the bus, definitely coming home from
BMX
school.
jumps next to my house?
Oh, yeah. That's true. Yeah.
I feel like it.
I know. I just remember, I think, you, Caleb Braithwaite, and Aidan Hui.
Yeah.
In Coastlands,
yeah, definitely
I remember.
on the bus.
On the bus, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, I guess before we get real deep into it, maybe talk about the setup real quick. So the setup might look a bit funny. So I've got my table mic as a handheld mic, and I've set Caleb up with the Rode lapel mic. You just try not to get it caught in your chest here too much. Yeah, that's all I needed to say on that, really. And we're also going to enjoy a beer. That's my first time drinking a Guinness, and Caleb's going to have it shot at pouring it. We don't have a glass that's big enough.
I don't have suitable glasses, but yeah.
No. While you're doing that, I might kind of. Oh yeah.
Oh no. Oh no, we good?
Oh, not good. Definitely not good. For those listening, Caleb's beer just fizzed open and pulled on the ground. Wait, it's out of a can.
That's
obviously.
your one, G.
Oh, that's my one. Thanks, bro. So yeah. Anyway, while you're doing the honours, I might kind of frame up the podcast a little bit. So the whole idea of getting Caleb on, I guess, is obviously we're mates, but I think more than that, we, on a consistent basis, have really insightful and thoughtful conversations, I suppose. Not to talk us up too much, right? I mean, all friends probably assume that they have insightful and thoughtful conversations. So maybe we don't know.
This is really the test. Now we have it out in the open. We can see it.
The critics can let us know. But in terms of this conversation, I was thinking about what I wanted to have a chat about, obviously, before we started recording and stuff. And I think there's a few different things. Obviously, we've worked together in various occupations, from the restaurant to labouring, all that kind of stuff. But we've also done a lot of fitness-related activities together. Sort of upon reflection, when I was thinking about what to chat about, we've played volleyball together. We went to the gym together. We used to bike in and out of town together just to get a Monster Energy or a Mother Energy drink and some lollies. So, and I guess we've able Tasman together, we've gone hunting together, and there's been lots of things that have been based around fitness that have brought us together and had us bonding and doing stuff together. It hasn't just been getting on the piss every weekend or just inside watching TV or something. I think fitness has been a large part of the stuff that we enjoy doing together. So I'd be keen to delve into that a little bit, but
yeah. No.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely very true. I find the people in my life I do like physical activity with, you definitely bond with a lot because I don't know, you just breaks down the barriers, I guess, when you're tired and you're doing something hard together. But yeah, I don't know, anything from biking into town, getting energy drinks when you're young, and like going on great walks or whatever. It's like
today when we got the musashi and it said, "Are you over 16?" They cracked me up, but we would have been all of 12 or 13 biking in and buying a mother energy drink and like 2 packets of lollies. And for a bit of context, the bike from Coastlands into town was probably, what would it take us, maybe like 20 minutes or something, eh?
yeah,
push
probably
bikes,
about
I'd
20
say.
minutes. Yeah. It's like next to the open road, just on like the BMX. It was very good.
Crack up. But well, I thought about there in terms of you talking about how you like to bond with your mates over physical activities, and it does bring you closer together. I saw this interesting thing from a scientist the other day, and he was breaking down how males in particular spend time. And one observation that's been found is that typically when males hang out, there isn't a lot of talking and heart to heart kind of conversation. You know, you might have the old conversation, but more typically we would rather be doing stuff together, and that's how we spend time.
Yeah.
That's why a friendship, I believe, doesn't degrade, or a male friendship won't degrade over time if you don't talk to each other all the time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Very doing tangible things, definitely. And it's like can sometimes be like momentarily awkward seeing people for the first time again, but then like going to the gym with you today.
Yeah.
Not that it's awkward when you see each other for the first time, but then like when you start doing something.
I think it's just the catch-ups, right? You're not in each other's day-to-day. So you feel like you have to quickly get up to speed with what each other's been up to. But instead of just sitting down and having a coffee or something, just partaking in an activity together, it feels like it sort of breaks the ice again or something straight away. And you haven't done the whole like, oh, how have you been lately? What have you been doing kind of thing. It's more about that physical activity. You feel like you've somehow caught up without actually necessarily catching up. Right? And that's actually good. So to preface this a little bit more, we've just finished at the gym. We did a push workout. I took Caleb through a little bit of a session, and then we went into sauna for 15 minutes, which isn't something that I do. So I guess you took me into the sauna. Not like that. You just, chaperoned me in there, and 15 minutes in the sauna. And you poured probably about 1.5 liters of water on those stones.
Yeah, got to get the water going on it, eh? It's got to get it hot. Then it's, I reckon, real beneficial there, the sauna. Yeah.
Should we try this beer?
Yeah, shall we?
Yeah, this is my first Guinness, mate. If it's trash, it's definitely on you.
Yeah, I feel like these are definitely the wrong glasses, but,
Cheers, boss.
Still beer.
Right, get it on the moustache. Oh, yeah, that's actually quite good, eh?
Yeah, I reckon with Guinness, I feel like it looks like it's going to be so heavy.
Yeah, but I think that's what's deterred me the whole time. But it's very smooth and creamy.
Actually, I just love the foam. Like, it's real, like, I don't know, like creamy. And, like, you can...
How many Guinnesses have you had? I swear this is our first one. We had a protein shake before this. That's good, though. All right. I want to drill down a little bit more specifically in terms of the benefit that I guess we've found, but even you found, of physical exercise in relation to friendships. Where do you think that, not necessarily the idea, but where do you think that first started with you? Was it from your first friendships, or was that something that sort of maybe more developed over time?
Yeah, I think probably, I'm the fourth of 4 kids in my family, and Joel played sport, my oldest brother. Laura, not as sporty, but also like quite like muscly, Laura. Like if she wanted to try something, I'm sure she could have been quite good at it. And Charlotte, obviously, like she's 4.5 years older than me. My older sister, and she's very sporty, very competitive, and I guess that sort of trickled down onto me. She was into so many sports, and we were always really encouraged by parents to get into sports. So from a young age, like playing, I think it was like before school or like 5 years old, I started playing rugby, but at that stage it was just touch. But as soon as I could play physical rugby, was straight into rugby. And yeah, I guess I found making friends was really easy because like when you play sports and like, yeah, it's just,
You
it happens
bond so
naturally.
much,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So it's like, I guess to me, yeah, it's just, I've always just made friends from sports and connected with people through sports.
One thought that came to my mind, because I feel like when I first sort of met you and Shah, you were real deep into your tennis. And how did you find playing in, which was a sport that you sort of stopped doing after a while, right? How did you find playing an individual sport like that as opposed to coming from a sport like rugby or football and then going into that individual sport in terms of the socializing element of it or building those relationships?
Yeah, I think tennis is definitely the hardest sport I've played mentally, for sure. It's because, yeah, it's not so much that you can defer blame in a team sport if you're not playing well. Like there is for that factor maybe where you could say, oh, you could like shift the blame, but it's just having no one to go to share like a moment with. Like if you're playing really bad in tennis, it's real hard to like to get the momentum shifted. I found mentally, and like I'll definitely, I was a bit of a tantrum kid in tennis. Like
Did you break any rackets?
I did break one racket.
I thought you were going to say no.
No, I did break a racket, but I tried to hide it. Like I was like, oh,
I lost it.
Yeah, no, I was like, oh, it's because when I serve, like I've been accidentally hitting the ground up.
Just like in pieces.
Like, no, it wasn't that bad. It was just like a crack in it, and I was like, yeah, but yeah, no, I definitely find that I think I'm more of a team sport person. Yeah, and
Yeah, I feel like the individual sport is, although the lows would suck because they're on you, I feel like the contrast to the flip side to that is that the highs would be even better because those are on you as well.
yeah, I guess, but again, it's more. I think it's the sharing aspect. Like I am happier sharing experiences with people, and so like for me, actually in team sports, I preferred like when I was winning because I had people to share it with and share the experience with. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because like, oh, say our friend Andy, when we go surfing, Andy Guffey often says he likes to go out on solo sessions, and there's people in surfing who like really love that meditative time. Whereas like for me, I would way rather go out with someone else and share that experience with them.
How would you feel if they were a complete beginner? Would they have to be of a similar skill level to you?
No, oh, well, like at least capable of getting out to the back or whatever. But beyond that, nah, because like you just egg each other on, you know. And
because
like
what that made me think of was taking people out fishing, although it's a completely different thing, but you can do it solo. But then when you take someone out fishing and they catch their first fish or something, it's like that joint vicarious sort of celebration, I suppose, that you share with them because you've both achieved this, but you get a lot of joy out of them enjoying the activity that you're partaking in.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you went back to your tennis days, what did it look like after that, and why did you stop playing tennis, do you think?
I guess it was a commitment thing. I never really fully committed to sports. I played lots of sports. And so, yeah, the tennis was kind of, it got to a crossroads of like, either I pursue this or I just kind of don't. And so I didn't, and decided to just carry on. It actually I think it was maybe before volleyball that I quit. Before I started playing volleyball, I quit tennis. But yeah, I wouldn't have been able to play volleyball and tennis because both.
Do you think of that comes down to your competitive nature? Or do you think it's purely based upon logistics and being able to manage it in terms of time?
Yeah, tennis is definitely, you've got to travel a lot.
Yeah.
And like tennis there's like definitely good players in Whakatane, but if you wanted to really make it happen, you'd have to, I feel like it would be best to be in a city or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and then once you got to high school, no, you didn't play volleyball until year 10, right?
Yeah, it was year 10, yeah.
And then you obviously found volleyball, which I also played as well, and we played volleyball together. It's interesting, coming back to the relationships, I suppose, the relationships and the camaraderie that you build playing volleyball. I'd say, right, aside from our close mates who don't necessarily play volleyball, but our closest mates at school were definitely the guys who played volleyball, because you spend so much time with one another, and it must come down to that sharing the highs and the lows together. And you have this activity that you can bond over that people who don't play it can't necessarily understand it.
Yeah, I think for sure, like volleyball's a really cool team size. Like I think that 6-player on court and like a 10, 11 player squad is really nice for building friendships, because it's like few people, but like as compared to like a rugby squad, which is like 23 people 20 to 23 people, it's like that's almost a bit like cliques form within the team, a bit easier in rugby, whereas volleyball, I feel like it's still one cohesive sort of like
especially group. When you're commuting, right, you take up one high span.
And
if you're staying somewhere, you take up one room or maybe 2 rooms depending on where you stay. But I remember those van trips, because we'd obviously go to Tauranga quite a lot for our volleyball. Those van trips were some of the highlights of high school, and this is the high ace vans are pretty rugged too. They only had speakers right up the front. So I remember these were the days when you would download, I don't know, 10 songs onto your phone or something like that. And there were times when we would have maybe 3 or 4 of us and we'd all have the same song on our phone. I think you can see where it's going already. People probably can't do. But so you'd be queuing up the song and you're like, okay, 3, 2, 1. And you're at the play button at the same time. You're like, ooh, this sounds mean. And most of the time you wouldn't get it, and it'd be like a half a second delay or something. But it was those kind of things. It's the off-court activities or the off-field activities that build those friendships and build those relationships as well. The game or the sport, winning or losing, obviously that's all built into it too, but it's like the stuff you do off court, especially when you'd go to nationals and stuff and you're spending a week with each other, and the van trip is 6 hours, not just 45 minutes or an hour down the road.
Yeah, I think definitely the traveling was such a highlight for volleyball. It is so funny. I don't know, it's those old highest vans, they must not have had a very high safety rating.
No.
And some of the teachers were so tired driving them.
After
tournaments, I was always like,
you're asleep in the van and you're like, wait, the driver must be tired as well.
Yeah.
Didn't P-Bar smack the top of one driving into a mall or something one time?
Oh, that was so funny. Yeah, it was like at Bayfair, and we went in with the highs, and he on the way, and he scraped the top of the van on one of those maximum height
they're like
things.
2.1 meters.
Yeah, and on the way he scraped it, and then we went in kind of sketchy, and then packed up, went to Bayfair, and then on the way out he I don't know why, but he just boosted it and
surely I'm lower if I go past
smacked into this smacked into this bar, right? And one of the chains snapped on it, and he's on the way out, he's we don't talk about that one, boys. That's so funny.
Yeah, it was 10 years ago, so it doesn't matter now.
There's no line.
Bayfair isn't gonna hunt him down to fix the bloody thing. Oh man, that's so good. So through high school, you ended up picking up rugby as well, which you ended up playing to quite a high level. You're obviously a very good sportsman, so you excelled at your volleyball and at your rugby. So what was that transition like? I guess you can't, one was more of a summer, one was more of a winter, so it's not necessarily a transition. But how did you find the contrast? You already kind of spoke to the team size, but how did you find the contrast of the volleyball, both the sport, I guess, but also the community that's around it, the volleyball going into the rugby?
I think, well, I shared friends in both that played both, like Zane Rangahika and Ryan Lavender, just a couple of them. But there's more people that played.
It's quite a big crossover.
Yeah,
right?
but quite a big crossover. And so, I mean, I'd always be close with those guys at rugby. But yeah, I don't know. I guess the culture was somewhat similar, but yeah, I don't know. Volleyball was definitely funner, like funner. I felt more competitive. But rugby is like an insanely fun game as well, Yeah. I sometimes wish I'd stayed on with rugby, but it's
It can be so detrimental to your body, eh?
yeah.
And the injuries. How would you find your mental approach to the different sports? Because obviously you need that competitive nature, you need that aggression, but there's something like rugby where it's so obviously so physical and the potential for pain and injury is quite high, both for you and for the person you're tackling or running into. So was there a different mindset that you would take into either of the sports?
Yeah, I guess like I actually feel like I got more long-term injuries from volleyball, to be honest.
That's rough though, because you're on the hard surface, right? And you're jumping and stopping.
Yeah. I don't know. I was always pretty good at taking hits in rugby, like falling well. I guess just playing from a young age, you learn how not to get wrecked. Yeah, but I found like volleyball was actually like, I've had just long-term niggles in my rotator cuff from hitting and those sort of things. Like rugby's just more impact injuries, I guess. Like you're just so sore the next day after a physical game. And
but a lot of the guys, well, there's a few of the guys at work, they play futsal or indoor football. And the amount of ankle and knee injuries that's produced from a game like that is crazy, man. Or even just your feet, but it's the hard court and it's the stopping really quickly, I reckon. And obviously the rotational aspect of it. So if you're good at falling and tackling in rugby, you're probably mostly okay.
Yeah.
Unless you get a freak injury.
Yeah. Unless like high tackles or getting dumped or like spear tackled or whatever. But yeah, like say like football even, like definitely lots of Hollywooding and stuff.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, when like you're using it, there's not as much like impact, but when you're using your feet to balance as well as play like the ball, you like in rugby, you're just using your legs to stabilize yourself, drive, run. You're not unless you're
goosey
kicking
stepper,
it. Yeah, the goosies. yeah. But like football, you're doing both. You can see how it's so much easier to injure yourself when you're trying to like be technical with your feet as well as like stabilize with them.
I think you're onto something there.
Oh,
all right.
There again.
Maybe changing tack a little bit. One other big thing that I feel like brings us closer in terms of maybe more of our discussion topics and we're not busy benching 180 kgs and stuff. Is the how would you describe it? Not necessarily educational content, but more of the theoretical, philosophical stuff that we consume, the content that we consume. I feel like that often sparks some big conversation with us, and that's when we're have listened to the same podcast or the same audio book or anything. So on that vein, have you been listening to or watching anything interesting lately?
I've actually been pretty focused on work lately, unfortunately, and like I used to be so into podcasts. I still do listen. I have my main ones would probably be Sam Harris for sure. I listen to the odd Andrew Huberman one. On topical things, or if Joe Rogan has a good guest, I'll often listen to that. Yeah, I don't know. I've read quite a bit of Sam Harris's stuff. I find him real insightful. Yeah.
On the plane ride up here, I was mentioning it to you before the podcast, but I was listening to that Huberman and Sam Harris podcast, and it's kind of ironic because they were talking about mindfulness and how distractible the mind was. And as I was listening to it, I would start thinking about what they talked about 5 seconds ago, and then like, wait, this is so ironic that I'm getting distracted by what they're saying and therefore not listening to what they're saying.
Yeah.
And that's one that I've found really insightful. I haven't listened to the whole thing yet, but in terms of the mindfulness is quite interesting. Obviously, Sam Harris is real deep into that, and having Huberman as the neuroscientist, it's real interesting getting his perspective on it. But I think the thing that got me thinking a little bit more was the concept or how they discuss free will. And it wasn't that Huberman was necessarily negating him or arguing with him, but they were discussing the idea of how the things that we think and the things that we say, we never know what they're going to be until they happen.
Yeah.
You can't predict what you're going to think, and you can't predict what you're going to say. I think that's one that got me tripped out for a little bit while I was listening to it. I don't know, you must have listened to stuff on that, but have you listened to Sam Harris discuss those ideas?
Yeah, I think that's probably like Sam's biggest thing, right? Isn't it? Like his sort of free will negation of like the idea of free will. But yeah, it's sort of like that. Yeah, there's no like, I find if you're like practicing mindfulness, you start to realize there's no like logical sequence as to like the things that come into your head. Like they kind of come in seemingly randomly, and like you can't specify the point at which they appear in your head or which they leave. Like, why did it come up? Like, you can't actually, I don't know, practically know that.
And it's also very uncontrollable in the sense of people can tell you what to think. Say, if you say, don't think of a giraffe. Well, there's a giraffe in your head straight away, and you don't have control over it per se. And like you say, the things do just seem to drift in and out.
And I get, the thing about free will as well is like, has so many massive implications, because like, say for the, like, if you start thinking of like a serial killer or something that has like, I don't know, done terrible things, but you realize like it's literally his brain making him do that.
Yeah.
It gives you lots of compassion. Yeah. And like, that's not to say at all that we shouldn't like keep harmful people away from society, but like it kind of removes this idea of there being good and evil people. Like he's evil. It's like, no, he's just like, he is who he is.
The thing that's controlling him.
Yeah.
But then we're going to get pretty deep down into this. But then at what point is it the person that's responsible? You know, there's obviously we all take different paths and choose to do different things. At what point is something on you? And I think the step before being able to articulate that is, what is it that then constitutes you? You know, if you're not your thoughts, if you're not your emotions, because they're just hormone secretions, what is it that then constitutes you? It's like you're just this sack of meat being controlled by something behind you.
But there's still like that's the beauty of like being conscious at all, is like, but there is something that it's like to be you. Yeah. Like that doesn't mean you have free will, but it's undeniable you're having an experience, and you can still be curious, and like
that is unique
unique to you. And like, I don't know. I think it's a real freeing idea, because like you're not like beating up on yourself. Like obviously you try and live the best life you can, and your actions have consequences.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I think there's more negative in the world. People believing that there is like an
Because
idea of free will.
and that's the trap. If you start to think that, well, I'm not responsible for anything that I do. I'm not responsible for my thoughts. Therefore, what is the purpose in trying to do any of this? I feel like you can go down a really nihilistic rabbit hole.
That's the fatalism argument,
Yeah.
right? Like, why should I get out of bed in the
Yeah.
morning if there's no free will? It's like,
Yeah.
well, try.
Yeah.
Well, do it. Like, actually do it. And you'll find that slowly you're like, oh, this is boring.
Yeah.
And you'll just do what you're doing anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like, if it helps you sleep at night, because for some people it brings them lots of, I guess, discomfort and like nihilism to not. So like, if you can't take it, then like you don't have to delve into the whole free will thing. But like, I don't think that changes. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
You know, like if you're gonna stay up at night about it, I would say don't think too much
but
about it.
my logic and what sort of counteracts the nihilism rabbit hole is that, well, you're here anyway. Why would you not try to make the most
Most of it, exactly.
Why would you waste your 80 or 90 or 100 years or whatever you have here contemplating the meaninglessness of it?
Yeah, it's like the kind of like the whole thing, like, oh, there's no point in living, but there's no point in dying either.
Yeah,
like
there's no
you may
point
as well just like
in living and doing nothing.
Yeah.
What is the point in that? And in terms of backtracking just a little bit to how you don't necessarily control your thoughts, one thing that got me thinking, this was maybe last year, in terms of a work environment and a work setting, what if, or when you come up with a really good idea or a really good solution to something, I feel like you almost just can't take the credit for it, in the sense that, like, yeah, you said it maybe, but I don't know how I came up with it.
Yeah.
It just sort of floated into your head, and then you say it, and then it's a good solution and it fixes the problem. But yeah, I don't know if there's any solution or where I'm necessarily going with this, but it almost feels as if it's not necessarily you that came up with it. There's this thing that generated it somehow from your past experience or whatever.
Yeah.
That just pops into your head.
Yeah. Like, but I think that's the thing. Like, you can just be happy that it's there. Like, I think that sort of like attachment to your ideas, or like attachment to the things you do good as well as the things you do bad, is what like creates a lot of unhappiness. Like, if you just detaching yourself from that can be like, and just enjoy having a solution by the fact that it's going to improve your quality of life and the experience of people around you, you know, rather than it's feel happy because I did it, or feel bad because I did it.
Not an ego thing. Yeah. And that's kind of where it got me thinking too. And it's not necessarily to say that I wouldn't, enjoy the credit of coming up with a good solution. Like, of course you would, like anyone else would. But it's just a funny thought that I didn't put any effort into trying to come up with this solution. It just popped into my head, and then I said it, and then, wow, that's cool. That fixed the thing. But yeah, I don't know. But that Huberman and Harrison was really got me going.
There's a lot of meat in that one. I was like, it was perfect because I was painting the house, like, and it was just such a perfect one to just mindlessly paint and just be like, okay, like.
Yeah, when I painted my client's house a couple of years ago, so when I finished personal training, it was after lockdown in 2020. I thought it'd be real easy to get a job. It wasn't real easy to get a job, so I was without consistent work for about 4 months or something. But I painted my client's house in that time as well, and that was 3-story stucco bloody thing. And anyway, I listened to the Hardcore History series. I'll bang out an episode in a day. Bro, they're like 6 hours or 5 hours long.
That's the Japanese one, was it?
It was the World War II, war on, what is it?
Or the Ostfront one, or
it was the Pacific.
The Pacific,
the Pacific one. Casanova or something.
Supernova in the East.
Yeah, that one.
That one's so good.
So it was funny. Every time Like, it's obviously really context dependent. And every time I go back to their house, I bring back a lot of the things that the podcast was talking about. Like, oh man, when I was doing this wall in particular, we're talking about how the Japanese went into the bunkers of the people and like killed the dude when he was sleeping, but didn't get the other guy, so he'd wake up and the dude, Yeah, no, I use that example in particular,
I
but
know exactly what you mean.
yeah.
Like, yeah, you could like there's like snapshots, and you remember yourself like painting like a certain part, and remembering like what he was saying at that specific time. Yeah.
It's like when we travel, but like drive between Wellington to Auckland or Whakatane or whatever. I listen to the hardcore history, the Kings of Kings one.
Oh yeah,
So
the
when
Gilgamesh.
when we go through different parts, it reminds me of that podcast as well. But not really going anywhere with that. But that's my fun fact for you. Yeah. So pulling it all the way back to school again and to sport and stuff. And you're obviously in the first 15 and also the A team for the volleyball team, which are both pretty strong teams. Especially our volleyball, I think, was really good in terms of a nationwide standard. What were any other things that you found that you really got from your sport? Not necessarily socially or from a interpersonal perspective. What were some things that it taught you as an individual competing at a high level like that?
Well, I think it's just, I don't know, just doing hard things, like being in pressured situations, I guess. I mean, I was never got to like a really high level in either. I'd sort of just played a few things to, like a good level, I'd say. But yeah, it's, I don't know, learning how to deal with negative emotions and that sort of thing.
When the result isn't necessarily what you wanted it to be.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, just training towards something. I often find it pretty hard to commit. And so like just committing to a sport is really the only thing I would have committed to during high school years would have been volleyball. I honestly didn't even commit that hard to rugby. I could have committed a lot harder.
It's just crazy because you're still so good.
I mean, I went to trainings and stuff, but I didn't, I think back now and like think about, I'm so much better at focusing on things. And like, if I was like that in high school, I could have definitely, done so much more with my sport. But yeah, I don't know. It's still, it's, I don't know. What did I learn from sport? I guess mainly, just working under pressure and also, I guess you're saying not necessarily social, but like being able to receive negative feedback from people and give negative feedback, or like
shit sandwich.
We're talking about sandwich. No, like that, I guess is quite good. Yeah.
Do you find that those are lessons now that are applicable to any situations that you currently go through?
Yeah, I'd say. I mean, in the workplace, like I'm a pretty agreeable person usually. Go with the flow. But like, I think also being competitive. If I'm in a team environment, I don't know. It's I guess being able to like tell someone if they're not doing it good enough, or like, or being able to take that as well and like just be better. Yeah,
especially because for people who don't know you, Caleb's a builder going through his building apprenticeship, and I think that industry is notorious for big personalities, for being disagreeable, for being that dude who just tells people to piss off and shut up and like do it my way kind of thing. And maybe that's more of a stereotype than something that's true across all builders and all tradespeople. But is that something that you've had to, or something that you've been confronted with?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for sure. But like, I think it's something that I love in a job, to be honest. I think that partly comes just from being real tired, because like when you're physically working all day, like you actually are just tired. So like, you're just way more irritable. So I think that even if people's personalities in the industry, maybe they're slightly like more disagreeable people or less agreeable people. But I think it's mainly just being super tired, and like often people are just really stressed, like,
yeah.
you know, and so I guess, yeah.
Because that was something that we were talking about earlier today on the way to the gym, is how you have been really mindful about how, you know, agreeable or disagreeable you are, and it's something that you're trying to work on in the work setting.
Yeah.
Is there anything tangible in particular you're doing to work on that, or is it just something that you're thinking about on your day-to-day in certain situations?
I guess it's just like I often think about other people or like how their situation. I'm quite compassionate in how I'll think about how they're feeling, and so I'll firstly think of that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of training myself to think of what's actually fair, you know, like, and in the workplace, it's kind of like, I don't know if it's in your like social life. I think that's a good thing to be.
It's context dependent.
Yeah, context
right?
dependent.
Especially,
but at work, like you want like it's more about things being fair,
Yeah.
rather than like trying to be compassionate.
yeah, absolutely. If you think about your home environment, sometimes you'll just do more than someone else because
Yeah.
it's family and that's what it is, or maybe you'll like talk about it or something, or you'll just do something for that person. But in a work setting, when you're wanting to also progress and not just always put others ahead of you, or if things weren't done fairly and you're consistently doing more than others for, you know, the same pay or even less pay, I think then there comes a certain point where you need to have a discussion and you're actually just getting kind of treated poorly or you're getting walked over. And I don't know if there's a tangible line at what point you need to be that more of a disagreeable person, but it's still very context dependent, I reckon. You don't want to be a friend that's just always disagreeable and competitive for no
exactly.
reason.
No, you don't. But like, I think being in a competitive environment at work is still real good. Like just keeping each other accountable and all that sort of stuff. I reckon. Yeah.
And how have you found the physical job in terms of its impacts or broader impacts on your life, either positive or negative?
Yeah, I honestly think it's like been better for my body. Like at uni, I used to sit in front of a computer screen most of the day, and like now I'm up on my feet all day, pretty much every day, and then I'll go to the gym after work, and I feel like my body's actually way better. To be honest, like I was actually working for a while, and it was like very physical at work, and I was using that as an excuse not to go to the gym because I'm so tired and all that. But like I actually found once I started gymming, it got easier at work. I've like had less injuries.
Yeah.
Especially like I was saying, rotator cuffs from volleyball and that sort of thing. Gymming and being stronger definitely like helps at work. Yeah.
And I feel like they both almost help each other. I feel like ironically, building, although it may have a repetitive nature to it, it would still help with your mobility, and or at least maybe not necessarily help, but it would not bring the negative effects of having a desk job. Sitting at a desk 9 to 5 it might over obviously a long span bring other issues. Like it's not going to be the most perfect thing, but nothing is. But it's going to be better for your body actually using it. Like you're squatting, you're bending, you're lunging, you're reaching, you're doing all of that stuff that people who work a 9 to 5 and never go to the gym and never do anything physical literally never do. So I feel like that's at least a physical benefit that it would bring to your body.
Yeah.
I'd be keen to maybe explore a little bit further, taking it back a bit.
Should I fill you up a bit? I think there's a bit left in there.
Yeah, bro. I just kind of thought, obviously this is the first mates one, so it's going to be a bit rusty. That's okay. It's probably only our mates who are listening to it anyway. They might have already stopped listening to it. Oh yeah, these guys are talking shit anyway. Yeah, bro, it was real good. I saw you only listened to 5 minutes of it. But I think it'd be interesting for at least, you know, some of the people listening to explore our friendship a bit more in terms of how we became friends, and how I ended up living with you and all that kind of stuff, because people are probably wondering what the heck, why did you live together in high school? We just kind of parked that and moved on. So yeah, if we pulled it all the way back again, obviously some of the things we would do at first when we first became friends was a lot of biking into town, a lot of sick as bike jumps, building bike jumps, and the jumps getting busted down
by the old people. Old people getting angry that were building jumps and just like coming with spades and just like smashing them down.
By your house there, down behind your house. And then from there, I guess the main thing that brought us closer and closer together was simply the geographical, or like just where we lived, really. Right? Coastlands. It was me, you, Caleb, and Aiden were probably the really original ones, at least, that became friends because of, Coastlands. Obviously, there's Hamish and Kevin and Ryan was actually there way back, actually.
Fisherman's, just off Fisherman's, eh?
Yeah, around the corner from me. So those were a lot of the things that brought us closer together. And then if we jumped through to high school, just to, I suppose, to say it kind of quickly, how I ended up living with you. Obviously, Mum moved us to Australia. She got remarried to a husband of 20 years ago, or whatever it was. And moved us to Australia. And then after 3 months, I think it was, I remember messaging you because I was meant to live at Robbie's, and then that kind of fell through because they had to move and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, what am I going to do now? So this is year 12 at high school, so 16. And I remember messaging you, like it was a joke, kind of like semi like serious, but mostly a joke, like, haha, what are the chances of me living at your house? And you were something like 73.5%. And you're like, oh, ask Mum and Dad. I was like, whoa, this actually might happen. And then, sure enough, it kind of came to fruition. And then I don't know how long it was between that and me actually moving in, but
I don't think it was that long, eh?
No.
Because you were.
I missed the first term.
You were there for the last 2 terms, or was it 3?
I think it was 3 terms I was there.
Yeah.
I missed the first term, and I'm pretty sure I was there for the second term. So it was the rest of that year, and then obviously year 13, and then also in the uni holidays after that until your parents moved.
Yeah.
And what do you reckon that time period in our life was like living together?
Yeah, I think it's so funny, eh? Like, I actually feel so lucky because it was like it was like uni, but like at high school, like it's in like you got the luxuries at home because like you're living with your parents, so they're still like cooking dinner and stuff. But like you still just can do like crack up stuff, sneak out to parties. Like, we went. Well, we
hypothetically we could have.
I don't think it was sneaking out of that day.
No. But we were gonna stay at Thomas's house.
Yeah. No alcohol or anything like that. No. But it was, I guess my parents were just like, because you were a real independent person, they were like, oh, Cam, he can stay. Like, they probably wouldn't have said that for many people because, you were always quite independent, I guess. Like, and so. Like, I don't know. It was so fun though. Roommates, Yeah.
I think I think the more time that goes on, the more time I reflect, like, that's actually wild that we lived together at high school. I think because it was just our reality at the time. Like, we obviously knew it was really fun and knew it was a unique situation, but it kind of just like, that just was reality. We would drive to school together and like, that just became reality. But it's like, the more time that goes on, the more I reflect on it, like, wow, we're only like 16 and we were living together. And I'd highly recommend it if anyone else could do it. It was such an interesting part of our life because you're still developing so much at that time as well. And everything is a novel experience, almost. I guess mainly in terms of, going out, drinking, partying, whatever, and getting your licenses and stuff. And life just, you go through so many milestones between 16 and 18 that it was such a fun and unique
Yeah,
time
yeah.
of our life
But
to
also
actually live
like
together.
also like a blur, sort of like
Oh,
it
yeah.
seemed to go so fast. Now I think
Yeah.
about it, like it's yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was real cool that like living with someone. I was always because I'm the youngest of the family. Charlotte, my older sister, she was year 13 when I was year 9. So by the time you moved in, I was the only one
Yeah.
at home. So it was actually really nice to have someone else. It was, it's a big house. So it's like,
Yeah, man.
to have the whole downstairs by yourself
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like pretty
yeah.
lonely. It's definitely good to share. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was the same too. Like my sister's obviously the same age and same year. So I also didn't know what it was like to have a sibling of the same age, let alone, like, I think a sibling of the same age is different because you don't necessarily get along.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're obviously mates, you get along. And we never really had any dramas either, which is actually quite surprising, I feel,
Yeah.
in hindsight. But it was just always seemed to be fun and really
Chill.
lighthearted.
Yeah. It was. I guess like you just don't have responsibility at that
Nah.
age though, so there's no
There's
reason.
nothing to get angry about.
Like life was definitely very, very easy. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember one of the funniest things like, from your mum. This is bringing back a couple of stories actually. Maybe I'll say this one first anyway. So that year, when it would have been year 12, eligible to get our restricted license, and we were obviously using their cars at the time. They had the two cars, the not the Roller, see. Anyway, it was a Blade. That's what it was. It's like a Toyota Corolla hatchback and the Outback.
Yeah, the Blade. Yeah.
And I remember sitting my restricted license in it, and like your mum dropping me off in it, and then your dad must have picked her up or something and took her back. And I remember before I took the test, as she dropped me off, she's like, anyway, when you pass the test, can you go pick Caleb up from school? You were at like a rugby training or something. She's like, well, you need to pass it because you need to pick Caleb up after. And because that was a big question mark, I think, for us, was obviously on a restricted license, you're not allowed to drive with passengers.
Nah.
So we were like, okay, well, how is this going to go down? I'm getting it first, you went long after, but I'm getting it first. Am I going to be able to drive us? And then on the day that I didn't even have it yet, and she was like, okay, you got to pick Caleb up afterwards. It's like, sweet, well, I guess we can drive each other on our restricted.
Yeah, nah. I feel like being the last child, the rules definitely loosen, like, because I don't think for Joel, my oldest brother, or anything, like, they would have been like, okay. But I feel like once you have like 3 kids that are all like, they've made it, they've made it out of the nest, then like the 4th one, you're probably just like, how hard can it be?
Do whatever. And I was just thinking another one in terms of us driving. Do you remember that morning we were driving to school, which is real standard, and they would, like, just me and you, I think, was I driving? It doesn't matter. We pulled up to a cop stop before school, and the cop obviously hit us up because we were both on restricted licenses. But there's that rule where if you lived at the same residence, you could drive each other. I don't know what it is, but anyway. And he wouldn't look at both of our licenses. Do you remember that? He was adamant that your parents didn't know about it. So he was like, nope, I'm going to contact your parents. And I'm like, what? Like, my license has the same address on it. Why don't you just look at it and you can see? No. I just remember that.
Yeah, I remember that as well. But like, he's like, oh, well, I'll call your parents. What's their number? And like, we just get in the number, and then I get home from school that day. I'm like to mum, like, oh, did you get a ring from the cop station? She's like, what? No, why? I'm like, wow, it was all
your
good.
mum would be like, yeah, I'm not driving them to school. They can drive themselves to school. And then I think the only real time we kind of got in trouble was when we got those beers that time.
What time was that?
Remember when Laura hooked us up with a box of Ronas or something?
Oh, we're like, oh yeah, we all good. Yeah.
And then anyway, we took them to the party, drank them, and then Laura, understandably so, told your parents, and your dad sat us down in the lounge. He's like, so what did 2 like 17-year-old boys do with a box of Coronas or 12 beers or something? And I remember our response was like, well, drink them, share them. And then he was like, wait, so 2 underage boys were giving other underage boys drinks. And I just remember saying, isn't that better than us drinking on? And I think out of the 2 years or whatever it was that we lived together, that was the only real sort of, altercation or muck up or something. The time we actually got in trouble,
Yeah, it's funny how parents are strict about different things though, because I feel like my parents, good Christian people, they I think they're alcohol and drugs for them are very out of bounds, but then so that's something they are very restrictive about. But say hanging out till late hours or doing going and seeing mates, having mates over or whatever, that was super relaxed.
Yeah, we'd go to Aiden's, right, and play mahjong till 2 a.m. or something.
Yeah. But it's just interesting, but then other parents might be lax about alcohol use or whatever, but it's the house has to be immaculate or
real adamant on time. You have to be back by 12 or something like that. Yeah. I just remember that. But I think it's quite surprising that was the first time and the only time really that we kind of got in trouble. Yeah. I mean, it was understandable.
Yeah. I guess
we got given a box of beers when we were 16 or 17 or whatever.
I mean, there's definitely worse things you can do.
Yeah.
We would have got them one way or another.
No. If you listen to this. No, absolutely. And then, what was the... Oh, yeah, and I think maybe we'll kind of wrap it up soon. I don't know what your thoughts are. But I think I wanted to use this time as well to just sort of give you a few compliments, I reckon. Ooh. And then sort of tell you a few things that I admire about you. And I think the first one that sort of came to mind when I was thinking about it was how well and how, I want to make it sound smart, but how logical, how logical of a thinker you are, but also how deeply you think and how critically you think about things. And also in the sense of when people say stuff, you don't just sort of take it with a grain of salt, and you have a art of disagreeing without being disagreeable, if that makes sense. It's more like getting more from the person. If someone says something, you don't just go, oh wow, that's cool.
You have to give resistance, right? Yeah. In order for there to be a good discussion, there has to be some resistance.
One of my favorite quotes, it's not necessarily a quote, but is 2 opposing forces get to a more accurate position than one force in itself.
Yeah.
And that's that, but you do it in a way where you're just trying to provoke conversation, not necessarily trying to be right. You're coming from a place of genuinely wanting to have a conversation, not just coming from a place of, I know better than... I mean, maybe you are coming from that place, but if you are, you at least make it sound like you're not coming from that place.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And then one of the second thing that I thought was how caring and compassionate you are when it comes to your friends and family. I think you would give anything for your friends and family. And I mean, you could say that about a lot of people, but I think it's very true for you. And then the third and last thing that I came up with, which wasn't as deep, but how well you can put on muscle and how well you can retain it. Honestly, you never, when you didn't go to the gym, you'd still be fucking huge. And let alone when you look at a weight, you gain about 10 kgs of muscle. So,
all those bananas in the backpack.
All those injectable. And so those are the few things that I came up with that I just wanted to use this space for.
Oh, no, thanks.
No, you have to say 3 things you like about me. But I don't know. I feel like that's probably enough shit talking.
Yeah, no, I talked a lot of shit,
How'd you find your first podcast experience before we wrap it up? This definitely isn't your typical podcast experience, by the way. Yeah, trust me, I'm normally more professional than this.
It was good, eh? It's I was a little bit scared coming in, but then you kind of just get into the flow, and it's I guess it's still a bit I don't know if I came across exactly how I would want to, but I don't know.
Well, I think you did well. That's hard. It's hard to talk for like an hour and a half.
Yeah, I just feel I'll be like thinking about what I want to say and then be like, oh crap, I've been thinking too long, and
Yeah.
then want to say something.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like if maybe with more practice, I would let myself think and not feel rushed into trying to add filler or something.
Yeah. Oh,
Maybe
yeah,
that's something,
absolutely, man. It's hard speaking like this and having the pressure of being recorded too.
Yeah, but no, thank you very much for the opportunity. It's been real fun, and
No worries.
thanks for the gym sesh today.
That's all right. Hopefully our mums listen to this at least. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's real good.
Yeah. Just get through it. All right, I don't know how to wrap it up. I reckon that's us. Should we have a few more beers?
Yeah, cheers, mate.
But not too many. Oh, yeah, cheers.
See you at the bottom.
Oh, what was this?
Oh.